It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. Over 8 years I've been on this radio show now, giving you my expert news and reviews of the real estate market so that as you listen, as you learn more about just the process of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, better understanding what's happening in the now with the current real estate market, both locally, regionally, and nationally, you naturally become a more informed consumer. You know what's going on, you know the right questions to ask, you know how to prepare, and you know how to succeed when it comes time to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. That's what this show is all about, just helping you better understand what's happening out there through my experiences as somebody that's sold over 1,100 homes here in Charleston and has been in the top 1% of agents here every year since 2009. So I share a lot of that with you, a lot of stories with you, and my understanding of the market, again, to help you guys prepare. Think about what you should be doing in real estate. Is now the right time to buy? Should we be selling right now? What are the benefits? What are the disadvantages? What's happening in the market? We're going to talk about all that this morning. But a few housekeeping items first. If you want to reach out to me, learn more about doing business with my real estate team, we'd love the opportunity, of course, to help in any way we can. My number is 843-400-8009, 843-400-8009. Always welcome to call or text if you have any questions or, of course, want to have a more private conversation about working with my team. And you can find out more information on us online. Our website is listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Learn more about myself and my team and who we are and what we do. You can search the MLS, find out how much your home is worth, find out some more about our incentives. Listen to this radio show by clicking on the radio show tab. A lot of great stuff, a lot of great content on that website, listingsincharleston.com. So let's jump right into this. I want to talk about the market kind of more on a macro level first, just kind of, what's happening right now. Let's talk about some of the economics that influence the real estate market. And then let's boil that down to what's happening here locally and how I think that we Charlestonians are going to be impacted over the next 6, 12, 24 months. What should you be considering right now? There's a lot of folks that we're talking to, and I would say that the majority of the people that are our clients, we've done about 100 transactions already this year. The majority of people that we have worked with have kind of had that stance where, hey, I don't have to buy, I don't have to sell. I'd like to. They're opportunistic transactions. Not a lot of people are in a position yet where, hey, I have to sell because I've lost my job, or yes, I've been furloughed, but I see the writing on the wall and now's the time to sell and cash in on my equity, buy something else before things get any worse. And we're going to talk about a few of those scenarios as time goes by. But let's focus on three key things right now first, and then we'll kind of just build a story around what's happening in the market and then I think what's going to happen. And I will say this, because for those that have listened to this show for the past 8 years, and you can go back and you can listen to the shows kind of toward the tail end of the year where I make my predictions for the following year. I get it right 90-ish% of the time. I mean, there are a few things that I've gotten wrong. I did say, maybe 2 years ago that I thought the interest rates were going to start to creep up. And, well, part of that was true. They did for a little while. The market couldn't handle it, and then they came back down. And so fast forward to today, and you can get an interest rate for under 3%. Literally the lowest they've ever been. Unbelievable opportunities to borrow money very inexpensively right now. But let's focus on unemployment, GDP, inflation, how that impacts the real estate market, and then just what's happening to some of these different sectors of people, the people that are both directly and indirectly impacted by this pandemic. So if we look at unemployment, I don't want to necessarily focus on the numbers. What I want to focus on is just the divide in unemployment. The people that are indirectly impacted by the pandemic and just everything that's happened over the past 6 months at this point, those industries have actually seen some pretty major business booms. I mean, ask real estate agents how their business is, And for the majority of them that are actually working, that run their business like a business, they're going to tell you that they're having one of the best years they've ever had. 2019 was kind of like the year of all years. And so even if we're comparing our business now to business last year and we say, oh, well, yeah, we're down 5% from last year or we're up from last year. I mean, those for a lot of people, that's a pretty incredible feat. But these are folks that, the folks that are kind of in the upper tier of the population when it comes to earnings, they're only at a 5% unemployment rate right now. They're actually reaping some of the benefit. Whereas the other folks, the folks that have been directly impacted, leisure and hospitality as an example, I mean, they've got 21% unemployment. So for those folks, it makes it even harder to get into the game. It makes it harder for them to get into the market. And they're in a position right now where they're seeing prices continue to rise. Their income has either flatlined or stopped. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel as far as being able to start making more money. And so what are they going to do? They're going to rent, or if they own right now, if things get, bad enough, then they're either going to be in default or they're going to proactively sell and say, hey, I've got equity in this thing, and I'm not going to run the risk of not being able to buy something if I have to miss a mortgage payment or two and my credit gets impacted negatively to the point where even if I could realistically afford the home, because of all the stipulations that lenders have when it comes time to get a mortgage, I wouldn't be able to get a mortgage, because they said, oh, sorry, well, you had 2 missed payments, so your credit score is so low now that you can't get a mortgage. Or if you do, we're going to have to charge you more interest, which in the grand scheme of things might not be all that bad considering how low they are, but still. And so you've got two totally different experiences basically happening right now. And what that does is it creates market uncertainty. And when that happens, then you have, fewer investments into real estate on an individual level. You'll certainly have some institutional investors that will step up, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But if you look at, a recession, what defines a recession? It's 2 quarters of a drop in GDP in a row. And so we're looking at a pretty incredible drop in GDP, really the biggest percentage change we've seen in about 3 decades. And you look at how that impacts new construction. I'm not an economist. You guys know this about me, but I do follow the numbers. I follow the trends. I relate that back to our local real estate market. So you have a really good understanding of what's going to happen and what's influencing the trends. I mean, it's something I've been following for years and years and years and years and years. I've been licensed for 15 years, and I got started at the tail end of 2006. So I was kind of born into a market where I had to be a market expert. Part of the reason why I have this show is to help you guys understand what's happening. So if you look at how something like GDP and just how the overall economics impact something like new construction, which frankly has been kind of clawing its way out of a paper bag for the past decade and finally was starting to show some real improvement, well, we all know we need inventory. And, not just on a macro level for each individual, buyer, but also on a macro level so we can return to a more balanced market. I mean, the reality is this: it is not healthy to be in a buyer's market or a seller's market for too long. So naturally, you want to return to kind of a balanced state where supply and demand are fairly in line with one another. It creates appreciation that's kind of in line with inflation. Who knows what that will be a few years from now? Separate discussion entirely. But, new construction is trying. They're just not putting things on the market quickly enough to keep up with demand. I mean, total housing production is actually up 23% nationally, according to the Commerce Department and HUD. But, I mean, just lumber prices, as an example, have shot up 110% since April. I mean, that adds an extra $14,000 per home to the average cost to a builder to build it. And a lot of us, frankly, are already feeling like they're putting up homes really fast and inexpensively. So if they're now absorbing an additional $14,000 expense just for the lumber, where are they going to make that up? How are they going to cut a corner? Are they going to cut a corner? You see how it starts to create some financial challenges for builders that frankly, we need in order to put inventory on the market to return to normalcy. So really, what all of these things combined really just kind of means that prices are likely to change in favor of buyers really anytime soon, especially here locally when we have so many people that have identified Charleston as the place that they want to move to, especially from folks that are from the Northeast. But we're getting a lot of folks now from Texas, Kentucky, Midwest area that are moving this way as well. But no one has a crystal ball, and I'm trying to stay kind of out of my own crystal ball here. So the question is, where do we go from here? What does this future of real estate look like from a market standpoint? What sort of questions should you be asking? What should your thought process look like right now? How are agents going to continue to adapt to this real estate market and create favorable conditions for you to sell a home and get the most money possible, or buy a house and not have to compete with 20 other people for that same home? They're going to jack that price way up. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me, 843-400-8009 is my number, 843-400-8009. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
1250 WTMA.
Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. We're talking about the real estate market. We just had a great overview, I think, of kind of what's happening from a macro standpoint. What are some of the contributing factors that I think are causing the real estate market, at least in the short term, to stay fairly strong? But we've got some things to discuss. We've got some things that could go sideways. And the reality is this: I'm not going to make strong predictions on this show right now because there's just too many unknowns at the moment. So, I've had a lot of people that have sent me messages and texts, and they're just like, hey, when are you going to do a show about, what do you think is going to happen here over the next 6-12 months? And some of those folks know that I'm a numbers guy, and they know that I follow the numbers and the trends very closely. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys putting your trust in me to deliver my opinion on that. The reality is, I'm not going to do any sort of percentage-based predictions on the real estate market. You guys know I'm not an economist, and I think even economists that do this for a living are going to seriously struggle with it because there are just too many unknowns right now. So what I want to talk about is just what I think is going to happen, generally speaking, and then how you, as the person that might be thinking about selling your current home and then buying another, should be taking this information in stride and into consideration in your own personal planning. And so let me start with this. We've talked at length about different kinds of recoveries that our market could see. And it's been, some of it has been linear, some of it has been exponential, some of it has been a check mark, some of it has been a Nike swoosh. We've seen the W or the flying V. I mean, how many different recovery-based shapes are there out there? Well, now they're throwing out the K-shaped recovery, which really is kind of in line with what I was talking about last segment, meaning there are essentially two different groups of people that are going through the pandemic with totally different experiences. And that's essentially the haves and the have-nots, if I could put it bluntly. The folks that are wealthy are going to become wealthier if they make the right moves and if they prepare and, if they're in a position to capitalize on some of the opportunities that are going to be presented. Meanwhile, the folks that are struggling, I think, are going to continue to struggle. Yes, there might be some additional government assistance. There might be some things that help. I don't think we're seeing interest rates go up anytime soon. I'll put my hand down the table on that one. I don't think they're going to go anywhere for a year or two. I think realistically, our economy is addicted to low interest rates. I think if we try to raise the interest rate before the economy is ready or even past the point of being ready, it's going to cause a recession in and of itself. I think things are just too delicate right now. And, we're at this kind of tipping point, so to speak, where things could get better, and they could get better fairly quickly. But what's going to cause things to get better? Something like a vaccine? I mean, what you guys, and this is my way of thinking, this is my opinion, but even if we get a vaccine, let's say we get a vaccine next week, it's not like things just go back to normal. It's going to take time for businesses to open back up. Think about the typical kind of mom and pop business. They're not going to just, as soon as the vaccine is ready, go back to the way things were before. They're not going to go all in. They're going to place some strategic bets, meaning they're going to start to open up more gradually. They're going to invest more in inventory gradually. And then as things continue to improve, they'll increase their investment. They'll increase their exposure to risk, and hopefully get back to where they were pre-COVID in maybe a year, maybe 2 years. Obviously, bigger corporations are going to be able to play that game, and they're going to be able to play it more aggressively, quickly, which is why some of those companies you're just going to see them continue to rise in value. Mom and pops, though, typical everyday Americans that own businesses, it's going to be a slower than normal or slower than maybe anticipated recovery. So you've got that going for you, or that's going to be in play. And so the wealthy, I think they're going to continue to get wealthy, and those that are struggling are going to continue to struggle. I don't think interest rates are going anywhere for, I think at least 2 years. I think prices are going to remain stable in the short term. I think they're still going to continue to go up just because of the complete lack of inventory nationwide, but also, of course, here locally. I mean, if you look at our month's supply of inventory, if you compare August's numbers in Charleston last month to August of 2019, inventory is down more than 50%, literally half gone. And even with all of that, we are still closing 6% more properties. So we have half the number of homes to sell, and we've sold more than we did last year to date. We've put 17% more properties under contract this year than we did the same amount of time last year, with literally half of the inventory available. I mean, that's how aggressive demand is, which is what's pushing up prices. Having said that, let's look a few months down the road. Look at those that are directly impacted. Not the folks that are indirect, like hospitality. People kind of in that arena right now. Or a lot of people that have been furloughed. Maybe they've lost their job. We've seen some recovery. We've seen unemployment numbers go down and kind of bounce around a little bit. But the big thing that's on my mind are all of the people that took advantage of a forbearance. Some companies are doing it for 4 months, some for 6. The max I've seen is 12 months. And essentially what that means is let's say for a 12-month forbearance, they're going to say, hey, you don't have to pay your mortgage payment for a year. But after that year's up, you got to pay us back all at once. I'm here to tell you that that's going to be a really tough thing for people to do, especially, of course, those that haven't found work or haven't gotten back to the point where they're earning a steady income. I think a lot of people have, frankly, kicked the can down the road. And that's great that we have the ability to, have the chance to get back on our feet. So many folks that have experienced those hardships. And obviously the hope and the goal is that everything works out and that you just needed a little time to get back on your feet. I'm just here to be realistic and say that there are going to be a lot of people that can't. And so they're going to start to miss rental payments. They're going to start to miss mortgage payments. Of course, that's going to impact the owners of rental property. It's going to impact them personally. It's going to impact their credit score. It's going to essentially prevent them from being able to buy something else. So that's going to mean they're going to become renters if they have to sell it, or they get a short sale if they bought it recently and prices start to come down a little bit. I mean, there are several different directions that this thing can go at this point, but we're already starting to see in the commercial market, business owners struggle. They're not making their payments. those shopping center owners or commercial building owners are feeling the hurt. And there hasn't really been any assistance for the property owners, right? So what's going to happen there? I think institutional money. Let's say as an example, there's a company here in Charleston called American Homes for Rent. They own, I think, still hundreds of properties in the Charleston area. So depending upon what happens here, they're either going to make the move to acquire more properties if the market softens, or of course they're going to go and they're going to start to sell some things if the market starts to improve a little bit. But they own large shares of homes in particular neighborhoods. They've got their own bread and butter homes that they like to buy and rent out. And so I think you're going to start to see some institutional money make some big decisions that will have an impact on the market. Now, of course, if these folks can't pay their mortgage after forbearance, then it's going to take a little while for them to foreclose. I mean, I'll tell you that in addition to selling real estate, I'm also a hard money lender. I'm a private money lender. And I loaned a builder some money, and he made me one payment and then never paid me again. And the house was collateral. And I had to foreclose on him, and I did. But it took about 18 months. That's about how long it took for me to actually take back that property. And so even for these folks that are in forbearance right now, when that comes due and they can't make that payment, it's going to take 90 or so days for them to, say, all right, well, I guess we're going to have to start the foreclosure process on you. And then depending upon how much stuff is in the works, how many properties are delinquent, that might prolong the amount of time it takes for the home to actually get foreclosed on. The good news with all of this is that people have equity. There are plenty of people that have equity. If they bought several years ago, you've got enough equity to sell your property, pay commissions, pay closing costs, put some money in your pocket, and move on, and maybe restructure a little bit. I think a lot of folks have, again, gotten used to really low interest rates. A lot of folks, 59% of people state that now is the right time or a good time to buy, and they see that improving. I don't know how you feel about that number or that percentage. I think that the majority of people, though, aren't really all that educated on the market. They see low interest rates. They see prices that are continuing to go up, and that's what they judge their decision off of. Obviously, I want you guys to be more informed about what's happening in the market and some of these factors that are going to influence decisions as it relates to buying, selling, or investing in real estate. And so when I come back, I want to talk about, if you're one of the many right now that are in a position where you're saying, I'd like to make a move. I've been in my home for 6 months, and I realize that I either need more space or I don't need this much space. I want to be in a different location, so on and so forth. But you don't have to move. You'd like to if the right opportunity presented itself. So I want to walk through that process with you. What are some of the things that you should be looking at? How, when I get the call to walk through that scenario with somebody, what are some of the questions that I ask? What are the things that we're willing to do and what we're not willing to do in order to transition into a new home? So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me and talk with me about your real estate needs, my cell phone number, my private number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, folks, for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Broadcast Saturday mornings at 9 and Sunday mornings at 10 on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I always like to take a little bit of time and just say thank you to those of you that listen to this program or download our podcast, which can be found on iTunes or Spotify or Google Play or, any of the above. or that watch our videos on YouTube. We've got, I don't know how many hundred now, Sam, probably 400 or 500 videos on there with basically recorded video of me in the studio recording these shows. So you get to see my face. I'm waving to the camera as we say that. Or just check us out online. There's a lot of great content there. Listingsincharleston.com. Search the MLS, find out how much your home is worth. Just a great resource center for you guys. Listingsincharleston.com. Or, of course, you can always give me a call. 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. And my email address, if you care to send me an email, or that's just your preferred way of communicating, that's cool too. Brian@BrianBeattyTeam.com. Brian@BrianBeattyTeam.com. So let's walk through this scenario of I think the typical person right now that has said, you know what, I don't need to sell. I don't need to buy. But I've been in my house for a lot longer than I usually am over the past 6 months, and I'm realizing that that it's just time for a change. And so if the right opportunity presented itself, I could be convinced to buy that home and sell mine. I've got enough equity here. It could make sense financially. We're going to get a fantastically low interest rate. Yeah, we might be buying a little high right now, but what can you do? It's not like you can go back in time and say, hey, I want to buy at the lowest possible point in time that I could have bought something so that I only get appreciation. And if you did, then you would have been paying a lot higher in interest. And so I think a lot of folks are saying, hey, if we're going to make a move right now, we're going to go after a house that we're going to envision being in for quite a while. And how nice would that be to be locked in at like a 2.875 interest rate on the house of your dreams? That'd be pretty awesome. I just refinanced my mortgage to 2.99% on our house here in Mount Pleasant, and I'll probably be one of like the 1% of people my age. I'm 36 next week. That will stay in their house for like 20 years. I have no need or interest in moving. But anyways, that's a little off topic. For the folks that are thinking to themselves, you know what, I'd like to make a move if the opportunity presented itself, but I don't have to sell. And they call me and I walk through that process with them. Here's where we start. Well, regardless of your level of motivation to sell your house, if we're going to sell your house, we need to first determine how willing you're going to be to either put that home in the condition that it needs to be in to attract top dollar. Are you willing to declutter? Are you willing to make some changes? Are you willing to show your home at 6:00 on a Saturday evening? What sort of concessions are you willing to make in order to accommodate the buyer that might be willing to write you that check? Because the reality is this, I could pay for all the marketing in the world, but if your home isn't priced correctly or if you're not motivated to sell it, it's going to create a disconnect that's going to create challenges, and it might still sell. But I think if you're going to sell your house, you need to make the decision that you're going to sell your house and you're going to put forth the effort necessary to get the most money possible. Because this is one of those markets, one of those rare markets that we don't see very often, where if you do everything right, including choosing the right agent that knows how to do this, does it well, does it for a living, does it full-time, does it several times a month, has a proven track record of success, you can make some serious money on the sale of your house. But you can also screw it up, and you can underprice your property, or you can be lackadaisical about it, or you can hire an agent that's just basically going to take advantage of the activity in the market and put your home on the MLS, kind of their own like little conveyor belt system they've built for marketing properties that's just good enough to get it sold, and you're not going to make as much money. You're still going to sell the house more than likely, but you're going to leave some money on the table. So you just need to make the decision as to, whether you're willing to put forth the effort to sell the property and really cash in and take full advantage of what the market can provide for you. And we've got all different kinds of programs that we offer when we walk through these properties. If we feel like there needs to be some decluttering and some staging, we'll pay to have a professional designer come in, walk with you room by room and say, this is what you should do. This is what you can do. This is what you should not do. And the husbands don't really like me very much after that consultation because they get a big honey to-do list. But I promise it helps. It helps you sell your home for more money. And it prevents you from having to burn through 20, 30, 40 showings before finding the person that wants to make you the offer. So some of the stuff is convenience-based. And I don't know about you, but I mean, last time I sold my house, I want to say, if I remember correctly, I think I had about 20 showings in 3 or 4 days. And I just stacked them all up. And we got the home sold, and it worked out great. It was a beautiful house that we spent a lot of time renovating. And that's kind of the case for a lot of sellers right now. We just sold a house a few weeks ago, hit the market, 5 offers the first day. No joke. 5 offers the first day with 17 more showings lined up for the next day. And we got so far above the asking price that the seller says, you know what? I don't want to sit around all day and have these people walk through my house. This is a fantastic offer. Let's just take it. And we did. And they're happy, and all is well. And so if you create that kind of scenario, there are a bunch of different ways to do it from a marketing standpoint, strategically, in tandem with your real estate agent. But it does also have to do with the condition and the price of your home. Those have to all be in alignment. So then, of course, it begs the question of, all right, well, we know that we can sell our home. We know we can get X for it. And by the way, if you're in a position where you would like to sell your home, you'd like to make this transition, but you know you have to do a little work to the house, just remember that we have a renovate to sell program. We can help you in a variety of ways there. We can just give you our contacts, and you can, figure out what you want to do. We can walk through the property with you and go room by room and say, this is what I would do. This is what I would not do. We can manage the project for you. We can line up some funding for you if you don't have the money to do it. So a bunch of different ways of helping you there. But when it comes to, all right, well, yeah, I can sell the property. We all know that. What about buying a property, though? How am I going to find the right one? How am I going to, create this perfect scenario in which I buy another property, which is contingent upon selling my home? And how do I get the owner of that property to take my offer seriously? How many sellers out there are realistically accepting contracts from a buyer that needs to sell their home first? I think for a lot of people, quite honestly, this is a limiting belief. You have created this scenario in which you believe sellers aren't open to that kind of scenario. And I'm just here to tell you it's not true. Now, historically, and folks that have listened to this program know this about me, and know that I don't pull any punches when it comes to the professionalism of real estate agents, and then the ability for a real estate agent to present something contractually and actually have it accomplish what the client wants it to accomplish. The amount of errors that I see in real estate contracts really is mind-blowing. As a population of real estate agents, there's a lot of room for improvement. Well, let me just put it that way. So I think that for those people that have worked with those kinds of agents that have not learned how to create bulletproof, ironclad contracts that accomplish the goal, that put some safeguards in place, and that have had a bad experience, yeah, they're trepidatious, and probably for good reason. They don't want to either lose their earnest money, or they don't want to put their home on the market and sell it and not be able to find something to move into. And they certainly don't want to own 2 homes if that's not the plan. I'm just here to tell you that there are ways of protecting you contractually so that happens. I've sold over 1,100 homes. I've not once made anybody homeless. And I've not once had somebody own 2 homes by accident. It's always been their choice. And it's always been with the protection that the contract allows. It's just that you have to work with a real estate agent that knows how to problem solve and write in those scenarios. So anyways, getting back to how do we find these properties that essentially aren't swarmed? Like, obviously, there are plenty of deals that are happening behind the scenes. There are plenty of buyers that already know a property exists before it hits the market, because some of these homes that hit the market that are under contract 20, 25, 30 minutes later, obviously there's something going on there where that buyer knew about that property. So where do we find them? Where do we find these opportunities? How do you, as somebody that would want to sell your home and buy another, have reasonable assurance that you can put your home on the market, sell it, buy another property, be allowed to sell your home, and if you don't, or if you can't, then you don't have to buy this property? How do we make all that work? How do we find some of those opportunities? I'm going to tell you that when we come back. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Remember, reach out to me, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009, or go to listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I want to get right into this last segment. We've got about 8 minutes left, and I really want you guys to understand this process and just how people are approaching it right now. It'll help you understand whether, kind of your own process matches what a lot of other people are doing. And more often than not, when we talk with folks, when they're saying, this is what we're thinking about doing, and they're 6 months away from doing something, 9 months away, 12 months away from doing something, quite honestly, that's a good thing. We want to start having conversations with folks sooner rather than later. And here's why. And let me explain this. Obviously, we all know that when a property hits the market right now, in most instances, if it's priced well, it's marketed well, and it's in good condition, it's going to sell almost immediately. It's going to sell within the first few days. So there's a lot of competition among buyers for those types of properties. Now you have the other sellers that are going to say, hey, I know that if I were to price this property here, I'd sell it immediately, but I want to buy myself a little time. I want to at least get my home on the market because I want to go and buy something else. And so I'm going to list my house. I'm going to intentionally overprice it, and I'm going to buy myself a little time while I look for a property. Now, let's say that this home that we want to buy hits the market, and I'm giving you a strategy here, a strategy that we've been using that works quite well, quite frankly. We'll list a property. We know that it's higher than what a buyer's willing to pay for it. We just want to get it on the market. We want to get that portion of the process, frankly, out of the way, so that when we find something we like, we can say, hey, we have to sell our home first. It's listed right now for $400,000, but if you accept this contract, within 24 hours, we'll drop our price to $369,900. There's so many different ways that you can play this game, but one of the ways that you can get a seller to agree to a home sale contingency is to just start to remove some of the hurdles that have to be jumped over in order to arrive at the finish line, i.e. the closing table. And so if you can have your home on the market already, then the seller doesn't feel like, well, I mean, I know when I put my house on the market, it took me, a week and a half between getting things fixed up and ready to go and then getting the photos done and edited and waiting for the realtor to put the listing in, blah, blah, blah. You've shaved off, 7 to 10 days from the process just by being on the market, saying, hey, we're already on the market. And if you look at the comps in the area, which, by the way, here's an analysis of the comps in the area that I did, it should be priced around $375. But if you take our offer, we'll drop the price to $369,900. Again, so many different ways of doing this, but that's just one option. And the reality is, how many people are going to be walking through your house if it's priced at $400 if they know that it's worth $370? There are going to be plenty of people, quite frankly. Now, let's say you have somebody that comes along and they say, you know what, I'm going to pay you $385 for it. And you sell it for more than what homes in that area are typically selling for. Is there a price in which it just makes sense to sell the property, even if that means going and renting somewhere short term for a few months? Yeah, it's annoying putting your stuff in storage, and you're going to have a temporary living arrangement. But is there a price at which that would make sense for you? If no one's asking the question, then they should be. There's something for you to think about. Now, again, how do we find this inventory that, frankly, nobody else knows about? It's really not all that hard. The agents and the teams and the companies in this market nationally that are doing very well right now are the people that are just having conversations with other people about their real estate goals. They are building databases. They are building pipelines based on timing and based on search criteria. And then they have to have a functional way of searching through that database. When, as an example, I talk to, John Doe that wants to buy a house in Mount Pleasant for $600,000. And they want to buy something in, let's say 6 months. Who have I talked to in Mount Pleasant that wants to sell their home right around that price range in the next, say, 6 months? That's what we're doing. That's what we've been doing. We've been doing this for 2 years at a very high level, way before COVID even started, because we saw that there was a better way for us to use the technology that's available to, number one, proactively find people, meaning when we put a property on the market, we ask ourselves the question of who's the buyer for this house? Where are they coming from? Are they a first-time home buyer? Are they an empty nester? Is it somebody in the military? Is it going to be somebody's second home? All of these groups of people have defining characteristics, demographics, geographics. They also have specific online behavior that we can search through, that we can identify, that helps us understand, hey, this person fits this profile and they're displaying online behavior that leads us to believe they're getting ready to buy a house. And then we put advertisements in front of them for the property that we're selling. We're proactively going into the market and finding buyers for our listings. Other agents just haven't figured out how to do that yet. They'll be able to figure it out eventually. The learning curve was steep, and it's very expensive to do what we do, which is why we sell a lot of real estate, and that scale allows us to do this for our clients. And it's a big differentiating factor for us. It works incredibly well. But what it helps us do is it helps us build a database of people. And I know some people are like, I don't want my name and number and email address, in some sort of database, keeping tabs on me. The only reason we want that is so that if you say, yeah, we're thinking about selling our house in the next 6 months, I can say, cool, here are all the people that we've talked to or that have visited our website that are looking for a home like yours that want to buy in the next 6 months. Let's not make this so hard on ourselves. Let's not always start from scratch. Let's use the people that have already been through the planning process and the preparation process. They've kind of gone from the aspirational phase to the planning phase to now the transactional phase of their home search. They're ready to buy now. They've looked around online. They've seen listings. They've ridden through neighborhoods. Maybe even they've walked through a few homes. But if you want to make things really easy on yourself, just make yourself be known. Let someone like me become aware that you want to do something at some point in the future. We'll respect your timeline. We'll respect your privacy. But it sure would be nice if you said, hey, we're going to sell our home and, we'd like to move in January or whatever month it is. If I have a buyer that's looking for a property like that, of course it benefits the buyer because now we can say, hey, we have these sellers we're communicating with that are going to sell their home at some point in the future. No one else knows about them. And then for the sellers, the huge benefit is that we have this big database of buyers that come to our website every month that are waiting for inventory, and we can match you up. So if that's something we can help you with, feel free to give me a call, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009, or go to listingsincharleston.com, listingsincharleston.com. Thanks a lot, folks. You enjoy your weekend, and thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.